much. Emily, how about in the county? What are you guys doing to measure resident feedback?
So we've actually, outside of COVID, really tried to sort of upend how we do that in the past 18 months. So traditionally we used a stock national survey to do a biannual community survey that was done primarily by phone, but also with an online option. And we found that the benchmarking capability that the national survey provided was really nice, but the questions were not tailored enough to our community's sort of lived experiences. And so there was a real trade-off there. So we knew how we were doing compared to places, similar sized communities across the country, but it didn't really dig into the specificity of the services that we're actually providing. And so we felt like a more customized survey experience would be probably beneficial. So we recently pivoted to a more customized model that used, again, a primarily web-based survey that also used a lot of traditional mail and phone reinforcement to encourage people to respond to the survey if they were selected through the random sampling process. The neat thing was it also had an opt-in survey. So we could actually compare what a scientific representative sample responded against sort of who we normally hear from. So we could see there was the opt-in received a lot more responses that were older, wealthier, more educated, and predominantly white residents. And we were able to sort of see the difference between the different data sets of responses. So that was really interesting. We also, in the past 18 months, have formed an Office of Equity and Inclusion. This is not something that's not that uncommon in local governments across the country right now. And right up until the beginning of the pandemic, really, they spent 6 months popping up all over the county, all the different historical communities that we have. And they had a survey questions about access to services, some governmental, some private. So, experiences with transportation, with education, but also experiences with groceries, with access to medical care, really to try to get a full picture of the lived experiences of our community members so that we can attempt to try to sort of alleviate some of those barriers as we move forward. The findings from that have been incredibly rich and incredibly useful for us as we find ourselves in the pandemic, because we have a really good sense of where the different barriers and challenges are physically, geographically in our community. And so as we looked at, how can we as a government be a resource on the human services side of the pandemic, we sort of know where some of the trouble spots are, and that made it developing interventions a lot more easier, a lot more simple for us. As March and April, I know everyone was very overwhelmed with all of the things that we needed to do all of a sudden. So that gave us a clearer path forward than we otherwise would have had we not done that. And I think the online traditional community survey paired with this very qualitative pop-up exercise really gave us a really robust understanding of sort of the environment that we find ourselves in.
Emily, I'm curious, when you did the representative survey work and then you did the opt-in survey, were there significant differences between the data?
There was, yeah. We definitely saw higher levels of satisfaction from the people who opted in, and the people who opted in heard about the survey from us because we were the channel by which that was advertised. So we were able to see, the people who are engaged with us already have a higher regard for the work that we do. Than your average person who their only interaction with local government is probably when they pay their personal property and real property tax bills twice a year. So that's obviously not a great experience.
But you're underscoring the importance of having that connection in terms of people having a better understanding about what services they're getting. They have probably a higher level of trust because they have that relationship, and so that kind of feedback I think is probably very relevant to the connectedness that they feel with you as an organization. Would that be fair?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's very cool.